Hey everybody, welcome to our very exciting personal development webinar with none other than Marcus Buckingham. And I have to tell you, Marcus, we are so excited to have you with us. For those of you that don't know, Marcus is an author, he's an independent consultant, he's a speaker, but most important, he's really an expert on leveraging your strengths in the workplace. One of his latest books is called Stand Out. It's a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller. He's been on the Today Show, Oprah Winfrey. Very impressive, but let's just jump right into it. So tell me a little bit about how you got into doing what you're doing.
Well, I joined a company called the Gallup Organization, and my focus there was on studying what is it that makes people most successful in work and in life. If you look at the best teams, you look at the most productive people, you discover that although everybody's very different and every team's got their own particular configuration, when you really look at what makes some people more effective than others, some teams more effective than others, you drill it right down, you realize that there is one defining characteristic about the most successful people. They capitalize on their strengths and they manage around their weaknesses. They seem to realize that every one of us is unique. We've got unique strengths and weaknesses, unique capabilities, unique vulnerabilities. And so in life, you have a choice, right? Michael, you only have time. Right. And so the question is, where do you spend most time? And if you really look at the most successful people, you realize they go, well, you know, if I was going to spend, even if it was just 49% of the time, where would you spend most time? They would spend most time going, how do I take the particular strengths that I have and leverage them intelligently? And then how do I'm not going to ignore my weaknesses, but how do I manage around my weaknesses so they don't get in the way?
Well, let me ask you this. How do people know what their strengths are?
Yeah, that's super tricky, isn't it? Like, what is a strength? Apart from anything else, you know, you're so inside your own picture that it's sort of hard to see exactly what you are and what you bring, because you're so close to it. It's like you're the New Yorker who no longer hears the sirens or the horns. It's sort of background noise. So for many of us, it's quite hard to step back and go, well, wait a minute, what are the particular things that help me, no pun intended, stand out? Often we think that a strength is what you're good at and a weakness is what you're bad at. So actually the first thing to remember is that is actually not a good definition of a strength, because you've probably got some things that you're really quite good at. You've probably got some things you're quite good at that you hate or that bore you or that drain you or drag you down. And so you have to answer for yourself, well, what would you call that? You can do it. And maybe you can even do it quite well. But if you never had to do it again, it would be a day too soon. Like, what would you call that? Because normally we call that a strength. A strength is what you're good at, weakness is what you're bad at. But actually, that isn't a strength. If something weakens the living daylights out of you so that you don't want to do it again, if before you do it, you don't want to do it, and while you're doing it, like, even if you're good at it, that's a weakness. A weakness is an activity that weakens you, even if you're good at it. And a strength, your strengths, are those activities that strengthen you. You might not yet be good at them. You might not yet have cultivated them into near perfect performance. But you have an appetite. You're drawn to them. A strength is an activity that strengthens you, even if you're not good at it yet. What you're good at, what you're not good at, that's performance, which is fine. But the strengths that you have are the antecedent to performance. They're what lead you to performance. Now you may say, you know, you get good at things you practice. All right, you get good at things you practice. But in terms of what draws you into practice something, it's your appetite. It's what you lean into. And that's what a strength is. Your strengths are those activities that strengthen you.
You know, it's interesting. It's funny, as you're talking, I'm like doing a personal assessment of myself to try and figure out what my strengths are. Yeah. And so if I wander off during this interview, that's what I'm doing.
That's where your mind's going, right?
But you know, it's interesting. So in our business, we have over 450,000 coaches, Team Beachbody coaches out there, who and really, what they're trying to do is attract people to them. Yeah. And so I'm curious to hear from you. What do you think about in terms of how leveraging your strengths plays into making yourself more attractive?
Well, so here's the thing, right? The first thing is you have to just make a decision in life. Where are you going to spend most time? If you ask people in America, where should you spend most time in order to be most successful in life? Leveraging your strengths or fixing your weaknesses? 41% of people in America go strengths. Everyone else goes with weaknesses. We are all drawn much more toward fixing, remediating our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities. We're far more fearful of our weaknesses than we are honoring of our strengths. And it starts so early, like in kindergarten, when you go as a parent, you go to kindergarten, your teachers are going to give you detail around your kids' A's for a second, and they dive into the F's, they dive into the flaws, all the red ink is all over the dangling participles or the split infinitives. Our whole life is spent going, your strengths, yeah, they're fine. Now work on this, fix this. And so the first thing for all of us, if we want to be more attractive in life, if we want to be more resilient in life, if we want to be more effective in life, you first have to change your psychology and go, I'm going to spend most of my time, not all, most of my time going, what is it about me that invigorates me? What draws me in? Where am I strengthened? And let me figure out ways to leverage that and then manage around this. So that's the first thing, which I know it sounds obvious, like, duh, who wouldn't?
Right. Easier said than done.
Right. And the whole of society goes the other way. The whole of society says fix, 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 fix. And we see it in school. Frankly, you see it in parents. So you ask parents, your child comes home with the following grades: English A, Social Studies A, Biology C, Algebra F. Which grade deserves the most attention from you? And you ask that question every year for the last 40 years. There isn't a single year where less than 70% of parents go with the F. We all go with the F because we're frightened of the F. So the first thing is, decide for yourself where you're going to spend most of your time. The second thing, of course, is how do you inventory what your strengths are? And if a strength is what strengthens you, then the beautiful thing about that definition is that the person who is most qualified to identify your strengths is you. You know, not you, like not your boss or whatever, you are the person who's best qualified to identify what strengthens you and what weakens you. Somebody else might come and say what your performance is, but you know what you're drawn to. You know what invigorates you. So if I was to say, how can you become more attractive and more compelling for the people you're trying to reach out to, I would say look for these 4 very obvious signs of a strength. And you know yours better than anyone, you know yours better than anyone else does. The 4 signs of a strength are, and you can actually remember them with the acronym SIGN. The S stands for success. So, all right, pay attention to those activities where you have some manifest success. That's not a bad sign. It's not the only sign, but it's not bad. That's the S. The I stands for instincts. What are you instinctively drawn to? You don't, in the course of a week, you don't positively anticipate every activity. There are some, though, where you instinctively lean in. That is a great clue to a strength. The G stands for growth. What are the particular activities in the course of your week where time speeds up? There are certain activities where when you do them, it's like time slows down, and what should be 5 minutes, it felt like it was an hour of awfulness. But there are other activities where when you actually dive into them, you get into what's called flow. And what was actually an hour feels like 5 minutes. It's the other way around. And your brain is growing. The synapses are firing. That's a great clue to a strength of yours. And then the N, S-I-G-N, the N stands for needs. When you're done with it, you kind of need to do it again. Maybe you're a bit tired, but you're not drained. You actually feel like it's fulfilled a need of yours. You feel there's a bit of that. And by the way, people can sense that about you. They can sense whether you're uplifted, whether you're, I mean, that's what the word invigorate means from the Latin. It means like strengthened. Mm-hmm. They can see that in you. So if you spend a simple week, what I would do is actually I would take a blank pad around with you for a week. And you've never done this. Like no one's ever had you do this, but you should do this. It takes no time. It just takes a little bit of attention. Take a blank pad around with you for a week. Draw a line down the middle of it and write loved it at the top of one column and loathed it at the top of the other column. And then take it around with you for a week. And every time you see one of those 4 signs, scribble it down in the loved it column. When you found yourself instinctively looking forward to it, scribble it down. When you found that time was like speeding up, it's like, wow, scribble that down. When you're done with it, you want to do it again, scribble that down. And on the flip side, when you find yourself sort of procrastinating something and shoving it off to the side, put that in the loathed column. When you find that time's dragged on, put it in the loathed column. So what you're really doing is you're just using the raw material of a regular week of your life to go, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses? By which I mean, of course, what are the activities that strengthen me and what are the activities that weaken me? And there's no judgment. There's no judgment of, well, I should like this. I should. No judgment. You look at the most successful people. There's no shoulding. Then they don't go, I should be like. They go, no. There's life. It will give me raw material about what invigorates me and what doesn't. And if I just take a blank pad around with me for a week, what you'll find is you'll have a whole bunch of activities on your loved it list. Okay, those are your strengths. And no one else knows them better than you. Like, I do this once every 6 months. You just take it around. You go, oh, okay. I need to keep locking into those activities. You do the same. I'm sure you've got a million things that you do in the course of your week. But some activities invigorate you and some deplete you. And we, your audience, if you like, we sense it. Maybe you don't even. But when we look at somebody and they're in their strength zone, they look different. They are more compelling. They are more attractive. They are more resilient. By the way, you learn faster. You're funnier. You speak more interestingly. You have more vivid stories. So all of that stuff happens when you're in your strength zone. How'd you get in your strength zone? Do love it, loathe it, and then deliberately, if you can, deliberately tilt your world so that you are deliberately, little by little, filling your week with more of those activities that strengthen you. It's almost as simple as, I'm making it sound more simple than it is, because people are going to drag you this way and that, because they don't know you from a hole in the wall. But you have to keep kind of nudging your world, tilting the floor, if you like, so you spend more and more of your time in those areas where you are truly invigorated.
Let me just drill into something that you said. So I have my white sheet of paper with my line down the middle, and I have my loathes, which I'm going to avoid, and my loves, which I want to concentrate on. But I got a whole list of them. And throughout my day, I have specific things that I need to get done. How do I know how do I know when to leverage which strength, if that makes sense?
Well, the answer to that question, of course, it depends on what the particular strength is. So you've got to look at those activities. On the one hand, what you're actually trying to do is not go immediately from an activity to time management. Actually, that wouldn't be the first place I would go. What I would do first of all is you look at that list of activities, and I would try to write 3, I'm going to call them strength statements. 3 clear from you statements of what particular activities strengthen you. So just to give you an example, when I did it for me, I found that one of the things that I'd scribbled down was I feel strong when I was actually interviewing a housekeeping supervisor in a hotel by the airport here. But she was an amazing housekeeping supervisor, and I found myself looking forward to it before I went, and while I was talking to her, she was so vivid and exciting, and I was like drawn in, and then when I was done with it, I sort of wanted to do it again. Anyway, I scribbled it down. And so I took that, and I was like, all right, I'm going to write a strength statement that's drawn from this activity, which I know, more than anyone else in the world, I know it's true about me. And so if you were going to do this, the first thing that you would do is you would say, I feel strong when, and then number 1, you're going to pick a verb. What's the verb? So I looked at that, and I realized that although I'd scribbled down, I felt strong when I was talking to Rosa about her work, blah, blah, blah. I realized that the verb was interview. I feel strong when I interview people. Like, that's a good verb for me. Maybe it isn't for you, I don't know. But for me, it's like, I love it. I love interviewing. So that's the first thing. When you do this, take an activity, I feel strong when, and then pick a verb. I feel strong for me when I interview. The next step is just to say, does it matter? Does it matter who you're interviewing? Does it matter what you're interviewing them about? Does it matter? Does it matter? Does it matter? So you're putting a little quality, a little detail to the verb. And for me, it was like, well, does it matter who I'm interviewing? Do I like interviewing everybody? Turns out the answer is, for me, no. I mean, I like interviewing people that are really good at their job. If you're not good at your job, I sort of don't care to talk to you, actually. So all of you watching, if you're really good at what you do, I am riveted by it. It doesn't really matter whether you're the general in the army or a housekeeping supervisor, it doesn't really matter what your job is. If you're really good about it, or really good at it, I'm fascinated by that. And so if you do the same thing, you'll drive into, well, I feel strong when I interview people that are really good at their job about what they do. That doesn't mean anything to you. But for me, I read that, I feel strong when I interview people who are really good about what they do, about the actual job that they do. When I read that, I go, okay, that's in my DNA true. So how many hours a week do I devote to that? Kind of hard to say because it'll vary week by week, right? But for me, if I find that I don't have weeks where I'm deliberately finding ways in which I can find the right people to interview, figure out whether or not I can use it as part of some product that I'm building or some client service that I'm providing. If I get too far away from that, if I find that a couple of weeks go by and I haven't done that, I'm worse. I'm less attractive, I'm less compelling, I'm less interesting, I'm less effective, I'm less everything. So if you could do the same, take your loved it's, look at a couple of those activities and write one strength statement. That when you show it to someone else, they may go, I don't know, it doesn't look that interesting to me. But for you, it's like, no, I'm at my best when I'm interviewing somebody who excels at their job about what they do. I mean, for me, that's like, even as I'm saying it.
Well,
I'm
you know,
like,
it's funny that you say that because sitting next to you as you were talking and as you were saying your strength statement,
Yeah.
I could feel your passion like coming up in you. And there was definitely, just sitting next to you, I was pulled into the energy of that.
So
And-
Michael, you know, God is in the details, right? So if you ask people what are their strengths, like I've asked you or you, like what are your strengths? And I would have bet my mortgage on what the answer is, what I would hear. Most people, when you ask that question, by far the most common answer, it's not even close, by far the most common answer is my strengths? Oh, I like working with people because I'm a people person. It's so vague, it's so vanilla, it's like, what do you mean I like working with which people? Mm-hmm. What are you doing with the people? Are you selling to the people or saving the people or inspiring the people or caring for the people or investigating the people or interviewing a verb? Give me a verb. Give me a verb. So when you do this, you're trying to get for detail. The detail really matters. Mm-hmm. Like with you, you're obviously trying to affect a community, build a community of people that you can coach and support. Okay, so what's your verb though? What I feel strong when I what? Like the more you can get to the level of detail about what you're doing, and does it matter what you're doing it about or who you're doing it with, that detail is so, so important. And in life or in school or wherever, no one does this with you. No one goes, wait a minute, stop, take a breath. What are the actual activities of your life that really invigorate you? You got to do that.
It's interesting because what we often talk about in our business, when people join our business, people will ask, what's your why? You know, why are you doing this? And it's interesting because a lot of times the whys are, they're very specific, like, you know, I want to be able to earn extra income so I can stay home with my kids, or I want to do this. But what's interesting, and those are all very valid, right? But your why, as you described, was a little different. I mean, your why was really about, this is something that I'm good at, that I engage in, that I love doing, and propels me forward.
Well, it's so interesting what you say, right? Because the why, and there's actually a lovely book on this by Simon Sinek on you have to start with why. Okay, like why did I join Beachbody in this capacity? Why am I excited? That's a good thing. Like why? Having said that, you're going to win. You will thrive, not because of the why, but because of the what. What are you doing? What are you filling your weeks with? Which particular activities really do invigorate you at the level of detail that I'm talking about here? The why is great. People join for why, and then they win or quit because of the what. You join because you believe in what it stands for. Wow, this is so great. But you win, you prevail, you stand out because you deliberately grab the world and move your weeks more and more and more toward the activities that really invigorate you. That's how you win. I don't mean that everybody who's a great, amazing coach does it in the same way either. You may have the same outcomes. You may indeed have the same why, because you want to help other people, or because you want them to be healthy, because you want them to have great lives, whatever. So the why may be the same. But I bet if you look at everyone who really excels, I bet they all do it just a little bit differently. And the best ones will have figured out at a great level of detail, what are the activities that make me most compelling, make me most excited, and then will have built their life around that.
Yeah.
Now that's a what question, not a why question.
And it's interesting because as I'm listening to you and as I heard you describe, your strength statement, like if you did, like you will be able to interview interesting people for the rest of your life.
Completely.
Like you'll never tire of that. And it's interesting because in our business, our coaches are engaging with people on a daily basis, like day in, day out. And there can be a fatigue factor.
Yeah.
And the fact is that if they can find, if they're doing that with a strength that they're personally identifying with, then that fatigue factor really goes away.
Well, and that's the other part of this, right? Is you leverage your strengths intelligently, which means initially drill down to a strength statement that is true for you, own it, write 2 more if you can, and boy, that just doing that itself will make you more attractive. It will make you more compelling. Your life will move toward that direction just by the power of your attention. Like attention is a creative act, right? The more attention you spend on what it is that strengthens you, the more you will move your weeks toward that. The other side of that, of course, is how do you manage around your weaknesses? Because as you said, you've got a bunch of stuff you've got to do in a week that no one's going to just take off your plate. You just have to do them. So what I would suggest is you actually, this is going to sound weird, but look at the loathes, the activity that goes on your loathe list, and write one weakness statement. Just one weakness statement, just so that you can own it. Like it's nobody else's, it's yours. And when you've done that, what you'll find is you can actually use your strengths to mitigate the weakness. So as an example, when I did my Loved It, Loathed It, I had to go to a VIP party event for a particular speech I was giving. And I realized before I went, I was trying to procrastinate going. I wanted to go there as late as I could. While I was there, it stretched on for days and days and days for 30 whole minutes. And then when I was done, I was a shell, right? And there were super interesting people there. I mean, I won't name all the names, but fabulous people. And I'm like, gosh, if you can't get excited about that party, like what is that? Write that down. So I wrote a weakness statement, which is exactly the same as writing a strength statement. Number 1, you go, I feel weak when. Not I'm bad at, I feel weak when, and then you pick a verb. And for me, I realized the verb was mingle. Mingle. I feel weak when I mingle. Other than moist. It's the worst word in the English language, mingle. It's like horrible.
I'll stay away from all M words.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please do. But mingle is like, I feel weak when I mingle. So that was the verb. And then it was like, well, does it matter? Does it matter who I'm mingling with? Does it matter what I'm mingling about? Because maybe I like mingling on some things. Maybe. It turns out for me, I realized, and I really pushed, Michael, but I realized, no, I don't like mingling with anyone on any subject, ever. That's my weakness statement. I feel weak when I mingle with any subject, with any person, at any time, which is weird, because I'm good at it. In fact, I'm so good at it. Like if you and I were mingling at a party or whatever, by the time I was done with you, you might actually think that I liked you. Like I'm that good at it.
Yeah.
And I might like you, but I'm hating the mingling. I don't like navigating in, I like navigating out of the conversation. Talking to one person, you spot another person over their shoulder, you kind of get out of that conversation, then you got to get to another conversation, but you're worried in the second conversation that the first person's annoyed that you left the first conversation, you got to get to another conversation. The whole thing is this horrible, delicate dance. But what am I going to do? Like not go to events anymore?
Right.
Just, no. So instead, and maybe you'll have something like this, I just took my strength. I feel strong when I interview people about anything. And I've taken that and I've just applied it to parties. So at a party, I just pick 3 people, one after another, serially, and I put them against a wall and I interview them for half an hour. And then I stop and then I interview the next person for half an hour and then I interview the next person for half an hour and then I go. And I come out of a party going, I killed that. It was great, that was. And I'm so much more interesting. I'm more interested. I'm more memorable. I'm more compelling. All the things that we were talking about before. People are drawn to you when you take control of the energy that exists in life and you navigate toward the stuff that energizes you and away from the stuff that doesn't at this level of detail. So you're not really saying to someone, hey, just suck it up, would you? Come on, you can get better at that. Because I can get better at it, but I'm never going to be juiced by it, you know?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I go, forget. It means, no, be intelligent. Take what strengthens you and apply it to what weakens you. Now, it doesn't work all the time. Sometimes you say, look, just suck it up and do it. And sometimes you say, cut that out of your life. I mean, sometimes the best way to fix a bad relationship is just to get out of it. There's no question that sloughing it off is actually sometimes a pretty sophisticated strategy. But for those things that you can't, for those things that weaken you and are part of your life, then applying the activities that strengthen you to that is super sophisticated. And the most successful people do it in a way it feels almost selfish. But it's not about selfishness, it's about contribution.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I am a lot less confident about our pre-interview mingling, but
I did great. You did great.
Okay.
I'm just glad it ended.
Okay, good.
And that now we're doing this.
Good. So let me ask you this. A lot of, so we're talking a lot about sort of self-reflection, individual strengths, figuring out what your individual strengths are. The reality is that a lot of our coaches work with other coaches. And so how do you use your strengths and other people's strengths? How do people who are working collaboratively leverage strengths, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I would suggest a couple of things. One is, although love it, loathe it is a good way for you to pinpoint which activities strengthen you, there are a couple of credible assessments that you can take. Probably some of you have taken them. One of them is called Stand Out, which is, as you said, is the book that we published last year with Harvard Business Review, and it's got an assessment in it with a code you can take. It will measure you on 9 strengths, and it will pinpoint your top 2. It's called a situational judgment test. So whatever you think you're like, this will actually tell you how you repeatedly come across to other people. As I said, it's going to measure you on 9 strengths, and you've got all 9. I mean, you've got bits of all 9, but it's going to give you your top 2, those places where you really are super compelling. So if you're working with another coach, very quickly it's good to use assessments like that to quickly see, oh, I'm wired this way, you're wired that way. I'm going to wait a long time for you to kind of show up the way I show up. You won't show up the way you show up. And of course, together, they say there's no I in team, but there is in win. So if you want to be a powerful combination, you don't want everyone to be well-rounded, right? You actually want to know, what do I bring and what do you bring, so that together we're more powerful. So sometimes, Michael, assessments can be very good shortcuts to, oh, Michael's like this, and I'm like this. If you don't have time for that, whatever, just lean into a question like, what can I rely on you for? Where can I rely on you the most? Which is an okay, it's funny, bragging's hard. So if I say to you, what are you best at? It's sort of tricky for you to lean into that, because you're like, well, I don't know that I'm best at. So it's interesting to flip it around, actually, and ask a fellow coach, where are you at your best? And that way somebody can go, look, I'm not saying I'm the best, but if you want to know where I'm at my best, boom, 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 boom. So if you're working with a partner with someone, ask them where they're at their best. Ask them where you can rely on them the most, rather than, hey, list your skills. Instead, you're really leaning into people's desire to be useful, their desire to be volunteerist. So you're turning to someone and say, hey, where are you at your best? Where can I rely on you the most? If you do that, if you just did that with 2 or 3 of you, you're going to get weirdly different answers than you think. You know, so often we say to people that we should treat people as we would like to be treated. It's like the golden rule, isn't it? Break it. Break it every day. Don't treat people as you would like to be treated, because that presupposes that they are wired the same way that you're wired, and they're not. Everyone's unique. You need to treat people as they would like to be treated. That's the platinum rule. Live your life by the platinum rule. That's true for the people you're serving, as well as maybe the coaches that you're working with. Figure out how they're wired. I mean, really, frankly, the most compelling and attractive quality you can bring to any conversation or any gathering, whatever, is your curiosity. Like, if you bring your curiosity into a room and you start with your questions first, who are you? How are you wired? What are you into? What drives you? The more...
And I think even, what do you love to do?
Exactly, yeah, sure. What do
Yeah.
you love to do? What are you drawn to? Those are so... everyone's got the right answer. No one's waiting for you to have the right answer. They know they have the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
So you find they lean into their own detail. You find so much more about people when you're clearly asking a question where they have the right answer to it.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting, like I just keep going back to the strength statement. Like if you can get out someone else's strength statement, you always know how to engage them.
Gosh, that is so true. And you wish... We run through life so fast. You know, you've got goals you're trying to achieve, and you've got financial objectives you're trying to achieve, and you've got product you've got to talk about, and it's all like da-da-da. But in the end, you've got a human. You're trying to talk to a human being, and you think that they're wired the way that you're wired, but they aren't. They're wired in this beautiful, unique way. And so if you can ask an open-ended question like, what do you love to do? Or how about this one? When was the last time a day flew by? What a great question that is. When was the last time a day flew by? Even if you're 7 years old, you know the answer to that question. You can say when it flew by, because then your very next question is, well, what were you doing? Why'd you love it? And maybe some of the answers, well, I was with my family, I was hiking, whatever the answer is, it gives you an avenue into a second question and a third question. And who doesn't? I mean, the subject that people are most interested in is themselves. Yeah. And so if you give them a way to go into that and you listen with curiosity, you'll find that, as you said, you'll know exactly how to engage with them. But also, they'll be drawn to you because you ask them to reveal layer upon layer of detail of their uniqueness. And there's nothing more ethical than that. It's the most important human ethic we have. Curiosity about uniqueness. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Hey, let me switch gears a little bit. Our coaches are entrepreneurs, right? So they've made a decision that they're going to start this business that's filled with vulnerability and obstacles and lots of things that I don't want to say stand in the way, but at least are perceived sometimes by somebody that's venturing off on their own into business. So you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You started your own business. Tell me, give me some insight into how you attacked that, how you got started, what are some of the obstacles you faced, and how you overcame them.
And we have like 2 minutes, right?
You have, well, now that question took 1.5 minutes, so you can just wrap it up.
30 seconds.
Okay. Thanks, that's good. No.
Well, moving on. I think I would share 3 things. Number 1 is what we've just said. You start a business because you have something personally compelling to offer the world. I am so ridiculously, hopelessly flawed. I mean, I have colleagues here who will be able to tell me every single thing that I don't do well. And that's okay. We've all got those things. I have a few things that I do extraordinarily well that I'm drawn to. You have the same. You have a few things, not many, a few things where you are 17 clicks deep. Start your business around that. That's the strength statement's the first little step of that, I guess. But never depart from that. Like, stay really rooted to that idea that you're bringing to the world a business because you have something unique to offer. That's not just cliche. That's deep truth, right? The second thing is you go across town stoplight to stoplight. You don't wait until those stoplights are green. The most successful entrepreneurs realize that success is an iteration. How do we start a business? Just start. Just start. Start and go stoplight to stoplight to stoplight. Now the why, the big why might be across town, okay, but you don't go, I'm going to wait until it's all perfect, because it'll never be perfectly lined up.
Right.
You just start. I've made so many mistakes on left turns when I should have done right turns, and right turns when I should have gone straight. So will you. But just start, because you're going to navigate across town in the end. And the third one is the one thing that is both necessary and sufficient for building a business. The one thing. It's not drive. Sorry, it's not product. It's not good luck. It's not any of that. It's a customer. You need someone to serve. Always remember, a business only exists if you've got someone to serve. When you depart from that and you make it about you, or you make it about a thing, or indeed if you make it about money, your business will evaporate because the people you're serving who enable all of those things realize that it's not really about them. So keep that in mind. Who are you serving is the most important entrepreneurial question you can ask.
When you first started, when you decided to start your own business, what was your sort of driving, what was going through your head when you said that I want to start this?
Well, it's rather like with Beachbody, right? You can go, oh, people should be healthier and have better lives. And then you go, well, all right, well, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? So I'd written a few books and I was giving speeches, and that was fine. But in the end, you go, am I an entertainer who writes books and gives speeches? And, you know, the Oprah show is great, and the Today Show is great, and the articles are great. But then you go, what is it that I'm actually trying to do? And what I was trying to do was actually help people leverage their strengths more effectively in life. And I don't know why, Michael. Maybe it's because I'm wired in a way that makes me think that's really important. Or maybe I have something in my history that says that human uniqueness should be expressed. I don't know. But for whatever reason, I took all the money I was making over here and I poured it into a business. I probably wastefully poured some of it into the business and it didn't return, but I couldn't not go, there's got to be a way to do this, because school doesn't teach us how to do it, college doesn't teach us how to do it, our families don't teach us how to figure out what's unique and special about us, and work doesn't do it. Most work is based on the idea that you work on your weaknesses. Strengths, fine. Work on your weaknesses. So I had to get into this business because I was like, if I'm not, and I'm sure you feel this way too, if I'm not building this business, no one else will in quite the way that I will. So if you have that feeling that if I don't do this, this thing will never exist. If that doesn't animate you, then the people you're serving will sort of sense that. So if you can tap into that part of you that goes, if I don't get out of bed and do this, this thing that I'm bringing to the world will never happen. If that gets you excited, then you start a business. And if it doesn't, that's great, then don't start a business. But if you're going to do that with authenticity and resilience, you've got to do it because you go, no one else is going to do it quite this way.
We focus a lot on personal development here. It's one of the reasons why you're here, is to give people perspective, different perspectives on really how to get the most out of themselves, how to get the most out of life. I'm curious, for you personally, are there mentors that you have or people that you look to that have influenced you?
Yeah, so I'm not from America originally.
Really?
I know, huge surprise. Was born and raised in London. And after university, I came to Lincoln, Nebraska. I worked in Lincoln, Nebraska.
That's where I'm hearing the accent.
Yes.
From Lincoln,
well,
yeah.
it's actually just outside. It's Plattsville, Nebraska. But it's
Okay,
very close.
yeah.
I went there because of a mentor. I went there because of a chap called Don Clifton, who was the chairman of Gallup. And he did that wonderful thing that mentors do where they go, I see something in you. I can help you develop it. I'm sure you've all discovered that you develop in response to another human being. And I was lucky. I didn't cultivate him. I found him. And he went, you are coming to Lincoln, Nebraska because there are things that I can do together with you that I couldn't without. And I was 17 at the time. I mean, it's ridiculous. I was so blessed. What I would say to you guys, though, by the way, is everyone should cultivate a personal board of directors. A personal board of directors. This is a small, if you think about a regular board of directors, right, it's a group of people that want the organization to do well, whatever that organization is. But every one of you has a personal board, a small group of people who know you and who care about you and who want you to prevail. You can think initially of just drawing an oval, put your name at the head of the table, and think about who's sitting around at the other chairs. Who's on your board? That's a great mental exercise to do, by the way. Who's on your personal board of directors? These people know you and they care about you and they want you to flourish. Given that we all develop in response to another human being, you might want to, A, tell them that they're on. Like call someone up and go, by the way, I did this exercise, it was called a board of directors, and you're on. Because so much in life goes unsaid. All of us have people that are taken from us too soon. And we haven't had a chance to say with gratitude, you brought this to my life. Like some of that is good attention. And then you might want to think to yourself, who else do I want to add to this board? And then deliberately cultivate a couple of other people to bring onto your personal board of directors. If we all develop most in response to another human being, then the burden's on you to seek out and ask for the help of other human beings. I had Don Clifton, and I'm sorry to be cliched, but I had my dad and my mom, both super different people, and both of them were unquestioning in their belief that I could do more and be more, and demanding. in their expectations.
Yeah, I think that's great. I love that idea of the board.
Yeah.
Although I do have a couple board members that I'd like to talk to you about how I get rid of them.
Your
But,
kids, yeah, probably.
But, you know, actually, Marcus, I really want to thank you. This has been,
all.
you know, a great sharing session with you, and I know the coaches are going to really appreciate and get a lot out of this session. So thank you very
at all.
much. Check out his book, Stand Out, take the assessment. I think that'll be valuable. And thank you very much, Marcus.
Not at all, Michael. Really
Pleasure.
enjoyed it.